Okay, so maybe we can all begin with a bow here. Well, welcome. It's nice to be here in this very small Zoom room. Fortunately, we're being recorded, so hopefully others will be able to connect with this goodness. And my intention is just to do a little bit of sitting practice at the beginning, give a very short talk, and then maybe have a discussion. And maybe we can still do that amongst the few of us that are in this room, because it's really much more interesting and personal if we are relating it to it from our own lives and from our own heart. To have it be something out there. I mean, Zoom is already abstract enough, and then to have Zoom have something that's very conceptual and abstract on addition to that is like super duper abstract and potentially impersonal. So to have a discussion, I think will make it hopefully connected. So the title of this family camp is Family as Universe, Connecting the Promise with the Perils of These Times. And so we certainly have had our fill of the perils of this time. OMG. I think Buddhism really has the secret, or I mean other traditions do, but Buddhism is very fond of the secret that even without a pandemic, life is super hard and challenging, and if you are trying to make it work from just the point of view of getting your ducks in a row, it will never happen, and you'll be miserable that way as well. So these perils of these times in Buddhism they would say, well, pretty much any time is perilous. Any time has these things going on that if you count on them working out, you're sunk. It doesn't work that way. You have to approach life from a different place, a different view and a different experience. And that's what family camps is all about. That's what I think all spirituality is all about. But our focus this week is on to embrace these perils and promises by looking at these four qualities of both wakefulness and a contemplative practice. So 4 qualities of what it means to be alive and authentic and happy, and then 4 ways or 4 qualities of a contemplative practice, things that we can do to connect ourselves with that wakefulness. So we have these 4 qualities, and the first one is being present. And the cool thing about all these teachings is that they can be experienced directly, firsthand, from the heart. So maybe we can just do that, and you can actually do it walking. So I don't want to stop anybody's walking. Oh my gosh, I need to be doing more walking myself. But the good news about meditation is it can be done anytime, anywhere. So we can just do that together, and to have an experience of being present, have an experience of this first quality of what it means to be truly awake, what it means to be truly alive and embracing this precious human birth that we all find ourselves in right now, which is really the whole thing. So we're here in our bodies, connecting with just the presence of being here and how it feels to have a body, connecting with the physicality of our physical self. And as we're connecting to this present moment in our physical self, we can also be connecting simultaneously with the present moment of our sensory experience, what we're seeing or hearing or feeling or tasting or touching. It's all wrapped up in one in this present moment. So we don't need to distinguish inside or outside particularly. We can let it all be as it is. And if we're feeling a little unsettled or unsteady, we can have a very light touch of placing our attention on our breath as it goes in and out of our nostrils. But again, the point is not to be a good meditator, it's actually just to feel, actually just to be here. And if we find, or not if, but when we find ourselves wandering off, when we discover or catch ourselves having wandered off, we're back. We can find our breath if that's helpful. And feel anything that we're feeling, anything that we're seeing, anything that's our experience in this moment. So thank you. And as we become more familiar with this present moment, we become more and more aware of this surprise. I always find it surprising that this present moment is really all that we have. That, oh my gosh, it's actually a lot simpler than we thought it was. That we thought that there was all this future and past and everything going around us. And really, there isn't. It's helpful to have a concept and to have these things that we have to do, like planning or looking at pictures from the past. But really, in the end, it comes down to this presence, this present moment. And we were talking about the four qualities of wakefulness, but in some ways, we could just say um, a definition of being wakeful could be to be present. So that's not only is a quality of wakefulness being present, but you could say that that is what being wakeful is it's being present. So, so this is really the whole 9 yards. This is really everything. And there's some traditions that say, well, if you want to be present, just be present. And the teacher might be asked, but how do we be present? And the teacher would say, well, you don't really go there, you just show up and be present. And it's a very kind of absolute, um, just get out of your head and be present and show up. Well, this tradition isn't quite like that. This tradition is not just saying what being present is and the qualities of being present, or you could say the aspects of being wakeful. It's not just saying that, but it's saying that there are paths, there are ways to be present, and we can talk about those and share them with our families, and that there's actually paths that are helpful to bring us to this non-conceptual place. So that's the contemplative practices. That's how to be wakeful, and so that's part of this approach and this journey this week is talking about contemplative practices. And the two ways of looking at contemplative practices that I like to focus on today is the contemplative practice of just being a parent, because parenting can be sometimes a very brutal contemplative practice, but it is a contemplative practice. And when I say contemplative, what I mean is it's relating to being wakeful. Parenting can relate very directly to being present and being wakeful, and can be a practice to help us wake up. And it can be a practice to help us help our children and help other people in our lives. So that's one way of looking at a contemplative practice and being present within a contemplative practice is the practice of parenting. And then the other way to look at contemplative practice is all the other contemplative practices that are out there, both sitting meditation or walking or birding or origami or Kyudo, archery. So there's lots of contemplative practices, both formal and kind of informal. And those are also valuable. And those are also valuable for us to have within our family and to encourage our children to participate in, depending on what they find to be a contemplative practice of meaning to them. So soccer can be a contemplative practice. But really, it's not just calling something a contemplative practice that makes it a contemplative practice. You have to understand, what's the difference between soccer as a contemplative practice and soccer as a sport. There's a difference there. So, so I thought we could just highlight that. But I first wanted to go back to parenting as a practice itself. parenting as a contemplative practice. And I think the most important part for me as a parent of it being a contemplative practice is what it shows me about um, my own state of mind, because it's so provocative. It's so provocative to be a parent, at least a lot of the times, um, that it's easy or easier to see how we're being thrown off, how we're losing our patience. And our children they never ever make us feel a certain way. They can trigger us, but they can never make us feel like my mom used to say, you're driving me to the nut house. They can actually not drive us to the nut house. We drive ourselves. We get in the car and we go to the nut house ourselves. And that's really our doing. They can be completely insidious and be doing things that we do when we are kind of beyond the beyond, because maybe they feel like when we are that way, we're kind of present, and there's some sort of charge there. But I'm absolutely convinced that they don't really want us to be unhappy. And even if they do want us to be unhappy, I don't think they have that control. I really think that that's up to us. So first and foremost, parenting as a practice involves being responsible for our own minds and our own reactivity. And so that's why the slogan is, be kind to yourself. Because I feel like when I'm being reactive, it's not because I'm not a good enough parent or my children need to listen better. It's because I'm not being kind to myself. And so my life is like this. And anything can get me going, and anything can get me in a weird space. And so I need to take responsibility for my own state of mind. And I feel like that really is the best offering that we can give our children, is having a state of mind which we're being accountable for, which doesn't mean that we always have it together, but it could mean that when we're mad, we say, I'm mad. This really upset me, and being honest, at least on that level. So that's the first part, is the parenting as practice being on an inner level, our own connection, own state of mind, and working that as an opportunity. And fortunately, parenting as path gives us lots of opportunities to work with that, because our children are around all the time. My child's not around all the time, so I don't have as many opportunities to practice. But when my child was around all the time, I had a lot of opportunities to practice patience and equanimity and all this stuff. So that's the first part. And then the second part, you could say the outer aspect of contemplative practice and parenting as path, is how we can help our children connect with their own state of mind. And there's so much that we can talk about, and maybe we can discuss how you've helped your children be present, how you've helped your child connect with their own present moment. But I would just like to say that, to me, one of the keys in terms of my own parenting is encouraging my child to be in touch with themselves and not be so worried about what I think about them, or not be so laying on shoulds and prescriptions about what they should be or shouldn't be doing, but more connecting with, how are you? Or I can tell this was hard for you, or I can tell you are really excited about this. And so being a helper as a mirror, rather than a helper as, let me tell you what to do because I have so much more experience than you do. I think adult experience is valuable, but I think we sometimes overstate its value. I think sometimes it's hopefully, maybe our greatest value as an adult is, yes, I've had to stumble through all these things and learn from all these things. And you got to learn from your own life and connect with your own heart and be in touch with that. And So I'm going to allow you to have that experience. I'm going to allow you to feel what you're feeling and to develop a non-judgmental, friendly attitude to everything that's going on in your life. And that's what I'm going to give to you. I'm not going to fix you. I'm going to help you understand that you already are beautiful and whole as you are. And so you're constantly referring them to themselves. What do you think? How did you feel about that? And if they're too young, then you can make guesses like, wow, that must have been really scary for you, and see if they resonate. So I would say that that's one of the most important parts of being a parent on this path and helping our children connect with their own paths. And then another part is to encourage children to connect to things that they can eventually, maybe not immediately, eventually make as their own contemplative practice. So it could be a sport, it could be reading, and you provide a quiet place for them to read, or it could be writing, and you get a journal and they can draw or write, but you make it special and you give them space and time, and you don't critique or grade what they're doing. You allow them to experience the whole expanse of what they're doing and to learn from the mistakes. So for example, one difference between soccer as a contemplative practice and soccer as a sport is that soccer as a sport, if you win, it's fantastic. And you're so excited and you give each other high fives, maybe not during the coronavirus, but you give yourself like these kinds of things. And then the other times when you lose, it sucks and you're pissed off and you're upset and it's really awful. And so it's so much about the external. It's so much about the wins and losses, or the successes and failures. So as a sport, soccer, I'm afraid to say, is pretty hopeless. It's like everything else. It's not going to really help someone be happy as a sport. As a contemplative practice, it's amazing because you have body-mind synchronization, you're working with others, and here's the most important thing, you can learn as much from when things don't go well as you can from when you hit the ball and you make the goal. So soccer as a contemplative activity, a contemplative practice, can give you so much feedback about who you are, how you're doing, how you work with adversity, and also just how you learn. Like if you hit the ball on the wrong side of your foot, it's going to go a weird way. If you're able to feel that and not get so down on yourself, but just see it for what it is, then you can learn from your mistakes and start to embrace your mistakes. And as Pema Chodron said, you don't have to create mistakes intentionally, because we'll have enough to go on just by being alive. So, but when the mistakes happen, then you're not so attached to the non-mistake that you can't feel the lessons and the goodness of the mistake, because it gives you something to go on and something feedback. So I think that we can encourage our children to find contemplative practices in this way, where they can learn from their experience and learn to be present and to see it as just another life opportunity. So, and of course, I think one of the best things that we can give our children is modeling our own connection with contemplative practices. And so if we have something, we can share that, that we've done yoga, or I like to play golf and I share that with my son. And, we can talk about it and hopefully let them see that we've learned from our contemplative practices, and then we have good days and bad days, but that, and this is a very important point, I think, that we're committed so much to being present, to being wakeful, that we are actually going to devote some of our time every day, or at least every week, to things that nurture ourselves, things that help us be present. And we're modeling that this is a worthwhile activity to do for our lives, that it's not just about being narcissistic or making a lot of money or being miserable. You know, the conventional ways of connecting with life actually don't always work so well. But one thing that does work really well is to have a commitment to being present and to find things that can help us be present. And if we model that, if we show that with our children and our families and friends, then they see, wow, you know, that's, you know, he's really made that commitment. She's made that allegiance to being present so much that she goes to yoga a couple times a week, even though the rest of her life is falling apart, because she knows that in the end, what matters is being present and not having your ducks in a row, which is an inconceivably impossible thing. I've never seen, the only way you have, I'm fond of saying this just because I think it's clever. The only way you have a ducks in a row is if you have two ducks. And then no matter where they are, they're always in a row. Otherwise, there's no way you can have your ducks in a row. So I guess, and maybe because we're not together, I can swear, but I'm going to say, fuck the ducks. That all we can do is do the best we can and open ourselves to being present. And when we're not present, to learn from that, and then to come back and be present again, and have this be the path towards our sanity and towards our wholeness and towards our wakefulness, towards waking up. So I think that's way farther than I needed to go with this initial discussion, but maybe we can stop the recording, and then I would love to connect with all of you more in a participatory way. So I'm going to